Brilliant. We are recording. So I'm really excited about this, the death of education and the birth of the learning revolution. My daughter was fortunate to be taught by Gary about 10 years ago now, and it made such an impact on her. She still talks about the learning experiences she had at the Prince of Wales School. So it's a real pleasure to hand you across to Gary Spracklen, Prince of Wales School.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's great to be with you all today in this virtual festival. As Lisa said, my name is Gary Spracklen. I am currently head teacher at the Prince of Wales School in Dorchester. I've been here since September 2017 as head teacher. Prior to that, I had a very unique job title of Director of Change and Innovation at an all-through academy, where I was responsible for leading the digital culture and ethos of an all-through education institution. So I worked with children as young as 2 years, 9 months in our early years setting right through to 19 in our sixth form centre. So I have experience of working at different phases of education. I also serve as a member of, as an innovation director for the Association for Learning Environments UK and Europe, and have a particular passion about how technology and learning spaces can support the development of more effective learning in schools. And I've worked as part of the Department for Education's Education Technology Action Group in the past, and been involved in different spheres to that regard. So hopefully my 10 years of experience in working in education, and in particular with a focus on technology in education, is something that will come through today in the presentation. And what I'm seeking to kind of explore really is the impact that technology is having. But it's not just about the technology, and that's a key point that we'll look at as we go through today. I always like starting with a good quote, and you can't beat the legend himself, Mr. Walt Disney. And I love this quote: "Times and conditions change so rapidly that we must keep our aim constantly focused on the future." And never has that quote been more important and more relevant than the time in which we find ourselves in now. And we live in exponential times. We live in times when so many things are changing, and the growth and speed of which technology is changing is just stark. And I love this quote. This quote's now 14 years old, but 2006 doesn't seem like that long ago if you ask me. It's a quote from the IT Pro magazine about the potential of a future iPod phone, and the expectation that that would fail, and that people would be preferring to buy a device from Nokia, and then look what's happened in that time since then. The truth is, even the experts find it hard to predict what's going to happen next, and things are changing fast and in different ways. I got a laugh when I put this slide up when I was showing it to the technical support here, and this meme is kind of popping up a few times, this one on the left here. But it just serves to demonstrate that change does happen. You know, you think about all the things that we used to carry around, perhaps, or all the different bits of technology that needed to be done one task. And now the power of the technology in our pocket, or perhaps on our wrist, or in future, maybe even built into our bodies, who knows? It's changing so quickly. And as a result, the world is changing in response. And of course, this is all before recent events, the exponential times in which we live now. And so, you know, I've just put all of these things up here really as think pieces, really, for things that are happening in the times in which we live now. Of course, we have the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the implications that's having upon education. Schools now have a legal duty to provide remote education. That came into statute last week. Had been sort of previewed for 3 months before that. But who would have thought only 18 months ago that schools would have that legal duty to provide that form of remote education? The pandemic that we've been through has accelerated elements of the use of technology in ways that we've never seen, ways in which government are now funding devices and funding connectivity, things that historically we've talked about as being a good option for disadvantaged pupils are now becoming more and more reality. And yes, universal access isn't there yet, but we are increasing every day the access that people have. And I love the quote from the very top of the screen here that is from We Are Social, and it's linked to a talk by Sugatar Mitra recently. And if you're not aware of Sugatar, I encourage you to check him out. But more than 40% of the people in the world have access to the internet, and that is growing. It's growing and growing, and in less than 10 years, it's expected that everyone on the whole planet will have access to the internet. And that's because of the growth of 5G, the growth of community-based projects. Some of our largest tech firms are focusing on getting their connectivity into rural locations and all sorts of things like that. And I know that's been touched upon by far better experts than me in the week already. I've seen a number of the workshops that focused on the rural provision here in Dorset. And I think it presents a huge opportunity for all sorts of different sectors, but particularly for education, for that universal access. This comes at a time when we're facing unprecedented economic challenge because of the impact of COVID-19. We've got our footballers campaigning for children to have the right and proper access to basic entitlement before we even start thinking of enhanced entitlements, such as things like perhaps access to technology could be classed as that enhanced entitlement. We're thinking about basics such as food and water for our young people. And this is all in this massive, great, big melting pot at the moment, where there's so much going on, whether it's through social change, through things like Black Lives Matter, or whether it's people calling for the overhaul of the exam system. You know, I don't want to kind of over egg it really, but it's an interesting time. It is an exponential time, and in exponential times I truly believe that we are starting to see a death of what was our education system. People calling for change, technology forcing people to interact in different ways. And if we've got any doubts about that, we've only got to look at the data. We've got to look at the data of the number of children who are not leaving our current model with what is deemed a successful grade, or perhaps the number of children that are not and parents that are choosing not to opt into education and looking at other options. But what is interesting amongst all of this kind of doom and gloom and this pessimism and this change, what we're seeing is some green shoots of new opportunities for learning, new ways of learning, new engagement. I don't know about you, but the last time you needed to learn something, did you pop down the library and take a textbook out and read the whole textbook, or even use the index to find what you're looking for? Or did you just type it into Google or type it into YouTube to find out how to do something? I'm doing it all the time. If there's something I need to do, it could be the most basic of tasks. It would appear basic, but it could be quite complex for me. A great example is I've got a green screen that I use, and I have to fold it in a certain way to get it back into the bag in which it came from. It's very frustrating. It's like one of these pop-out tents, so you never know quite how to go back in. And I almost find myself time and time again going to YouTube going, how do I fold this up? And I get the same video come up and I copy it and I do it. And that's a really, really weak example perhaps, but it's endemic of how technology is changing how we interact with the learning process. And I do believe we're starting to see the birth of a learning revolution. But great innovation only happens when people aren't afraid to do things differently, where people aren't afraid to step out. And part of my talk today is that I'd really encourage any of you that are involved in education or other spheres to not be afraid to do things differently, because there's great enjoyment and great progress that can be made by looking at things in a different way. I haven't got the time to share this with you now because I thought my talk was a little bit longer than it actually should have been. That's my fault. But I would really encourage you to check out the extraordinary case of Mr. Yamasaki. Mr. Yamasaki is a Japanese head teacher who's taken a school over in Truro in Cornwall. And the blog post that this links off to, which you can read in your own time, highlights the changes that he's made to his school. And when reading this post, I was really inspired, because he's done things like, in September, he only has the reception children back for the first week, so that every single member of staff in the school can get to know the reception children really well, and that all the reception children then know all the staff well. They get to navigate the school without any other children there. With his year ones, on a daily basis, they come in half an hour earlier, so that all staff work with the year ones, so that phonics is really embedded, and high quality teaching is happening in that phonics, so that children can read really effectively well. They're providing meals for their community. They're doing all sorts of new and innovative things. And it seems like it could be too good to be true. And the reality is, in Mr. Yamasaki's case, it is too good to be true, because Mr. Yamasaki, the extraordinary case of Mr. Yamasaki, is a work of fiction, and it's used as a think piece to encourage people to think differently. And if you've never read it before, I do encourage you to read it. And I'm sorry I've spoilt it by telling you it's a work of fiction. But when I read it, it made me think about this quote again. How can we do things? How can we not be afraid to do things differently? How can we focus on what should be done? And a lot of my work over the years, I've come back to the golden circle of Simon Sinek, great TED speaker. And Simon talks, if you've not seen the TED Talk, again, do check it out. Simon talks about the importance of why. Why make a change? Why do you want to do something differently? What's the purpose? Before we start thinking about the how and the what, and time again, I find in education institutions, people focus far too much on the how and the what. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? Before focusing on why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we making a change? And for me, the key to all of this and the key to the changes that I've made in my school and the changes that I'm seeing in learning rather than education is this. It's all about the learning. Why we do what we do as educationalists or as people involved in delivering school models, it should be about this. It shouldn't be about exam results. It shouldn't be about teacher satisfaction or parent satisfaction. It should be about learning and the joy of learning and igniting something that doesn't just last until you're 16 when you leave with a qualification or 18 when you leave with a qualification, but that's with you for a lifetime. Because you can't beat that feeling of learning something new, learning something for the very first time. It's just the best feeling in the world.
Do you feel alive? I feel happy of myself. I feel happy of yourself too. What, do you got any words of wisdom? What about for all the other kids trying to learn how to ride their bike? Can you say anything to them?
Everybody, I know you can believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you will know how to ride a bike. If you don't, you just keep practicing. You will get the hang of it, I know it. If you keep practicing, you will get the hang of it, and then you can get better and better at it if you do it.
Give me some thumbs up.
Thumbs up, everybody!
All right.
For rock and roll!
You can't beat that learning feeling, that opportunity of acquiring new knowledge. Nothing that's worth it. Well, what's that saying? You've got to work hard for things that are worth doing. That's the sort of learning that I want to see in my institution because it's infectious, it's addictive. You want to find out more. You want to go deeper. At my school, we've sought to review what we do in order so that we can focus on what's important as an institution. We've made sure that we do that regularly, bringing ourselves back to what's important. And our renewed goals are all about improving and working together, improving the quality of teaching and learning, improving the conditions for learning, and developing the school as a whole professional learning community. You'll see that the word learning is in 3 of those 4 statements, because that is what is at the heart of what we do. Good, high quality, solid learning. And in order to do that, we need requirements in how we work. And these are things that I stress all of the time with my team. And the bottom one there is the most important thing. Keeping things simple and trusting each other in what we do. That's how we deliver better learning, by keeping it simple and trusting each other in what we do. And my journey for the changes that we've made at the Prince of Wales School and how we've seen the birth of a learning revolution at my school came through all sorts of different avenues. But one of them that I keep coming back to regularly is this quote. It's a very simple quote, but it's from one of my Year 4 children. We're a first school here at the Prince of Wales School. Generally speaking, we have very high levels of attainment, children being really successful with their learning. And in this particular example of this Year 4 child, this child was a child working at greater depth. They were mainly working on Year 5 and Year 6 material in terms of what they had to achieve from an academic point of view. But then they came to me in the January of 2018 and said this, Mr. Spracklen, what do? I don't have a pen. And do you know what the funny thing about that statement is? None of my reception children have ever come up and asked me that question, because my reception environment and my preschool environment is an environment in which enables better learning. It enables the students to be independent. If one of my reception or early years or preschool children want to get a pen, they know where to go and get it from, and they access it, and they won't just access one, they'll access about 300 perhaps that of choices that they could do, and that's because the environment is designed to meet their needs. Whereas unfortunately what I was seeing in the school was that the environment wasn't built for the children, it was built for the teacher, and that's something that I wanted to address and change. And thankfully at the time I was doing a series of visits to other schools, and I visited the most inspiring school that I've ever been to, a really inspiring school that's based just outside London, and the head teacher, Di Pumry, talked to us about the changes that her school had gone through. This is an outstanding teaching school who do absolutely incredible work, and I'm going to show you a little video about what they do in a minute. But some of the quotes here and some of the work that she did really inspired and pushed forward my journey as a school. And I love the quote that she's got in the top right-hand corner here from Ian Forrester: "Spoon feeding in the long run teaches us nothing but the shape of the spoon. How do we make independent learning active in what we do?" And this is just a short overview of West Thornton Primary School. I'd love to share with you. School in Croydon.
We discovered a concept of a more open plan approach where collaboration is at the heart of it, where teachers are working together as well as children working together. We work a lot with technology. We think that the independent learning that we've been able to achieve with our children really works hand in hand with the technology in the classroom. It allows our children to become independent. Children choose the iPad or the laptop because it's the best tool for their learning at that point, and that's because they know what's best for their learning. They've become independent learners and know how they learn best. Children wanted to come to school. They wanted to be at school because it was a stimulating, creative environment. They had some choice. It was engaging. It was fun. They started to want to come to schools. People say, "Oh, this is so new." We say, "No, it isn't. It's teaching and learning. It's just focused teaching and independent learning. The environment might look different, but it's very old kind of pedagogy."
This is learner-led as well as teacher-inspired, and by gosh, it works.
So I actually had the pleasure of visiting West Thornton in the January of 2018. And these are just some of the images that I took when I walked around, and it was so different from what I'd seen in so many other schools and from a traditional sense. But what I saw time and time again was a pure focus on learning and how children learn. A huge focus on building children's learning powers, making sure that they had independent choice around their activity, and the motivation and the success that they saw in an all-through primary, from reception through to year 6, was just outstanding. This was actually in the year 6 environment that they were getting prepared for SATs, which would have taken place 4 or 5 months later. And what we saw is a range of different activities, from intervention work happening in the little a little kind of shed space in the top right-hand corner there, to some really focused group work in a separate room, which is the bottom right-hand corner there, to some independent study. And actually, these students in the top left here, there was no adult supervising these students. They were in a different part of the room that was slightly shielded, An adult was coming back and checking on them now and again, but they were just so engaged and engrossed in what they were learning. It was really inspiring to see that children at that age engage in content in that way. And I took at the time my year 4 teacher along with me. We went with no agenda. We just went to see what was different. And I made it really clear to my year 4 teacher, obviously I'm not expecting you to come back and put the brick wallpaper up and put the AstroTurf down and get the kids lying on the floor. That was never my intention. I just wanted her as a seasoned professional, if we call it that, to take her viewpoint on it and consider how what was happening in the room. And straight away, literally the day we got back, actually, she sent me an email and said, I have a plan to experiment with my class following a visit to West Thornton Primary Academy. And I love that she felt that she could experiment with what she was doing in the classroom. Because I think too often we create environments in which teachers feel that they haven't got the opportunity to experiment, to try new things, to test them out. And she obviously felt confident to do that. And she said, feel free to pop in and out the class this week and see how it's going. I'm going to tell them all about it first and discuss and introduce this tomorrow. In other words, she was engaging the learners in the process. She wanted to seek their views about how learning could be made better. And I just think that's wonderful. And it might not necessarily mean the introduction of technology or the introduction of new environments or furniture. It might just mean, actually, if you ask your students, how can you make something better? They might come back and say, well, do you know what, when you do that, it doesn't work for us, but this works. And everything's going to be unique to the children that you're teaching. And that's really powerful. Sam also added that she wanted the children to present their findings to us and we could film and interview. And that's what we did. Over the coming days, we filmed and interviewed the children. She put up a more independent approach to the timetable. She created some of the things that she's seen in West Thornton, and this was all an experiment to see how the children got on with it. And this is what the children's reflections were at the end of day 1. Okay, so I'm here with... Ooh. Let's try that again. Okay, so I'm here with...
Henry, Sky, Una.
And you're 3 year 4 students here at the Prince of Wales School.
Yes, yes.
And today's been a bit different at the Prince of Wales School. What's been different, Una?
Well, instead of like our teacher telling us that we have to do this and they explain it to us, we get tasked things that we have to do throughout the week, and then we decide what we want to do in that day. But there's certain things you've got to do in the day. So
it's been a different structure today?
Yeah.
That's the very first day you've worked in this way. What have you thought of it, Henry?
Oh, it's been really good. Definitely better than other days. I think we should do it every single week because, like, instead of, like, saying, well, if you're not in the mood, say you're not in the mood for doing geography, so you're in the mood for maths instead. Like, you can choose to do maths instead of geography. But if you've got a timetable, you're going to have to do geography. But you get to choose.
So how's your... I'm just going to pause it there because I've got more reflections and I'm conscious of time, and I will make the whole videos available. But Henry raises an interesting point about voice and choice over activities. What's really interesting through this current time is that children have had more voice and choice with their remote learning activities and choosing when they do different activities. It's very funny in schools. We build a system that works for the adults and works for the mechanics of operation. Really great example of that is schools are probably one of the only places where we ring a bell at 12:30 and expect every single person to be simultaneously hungry. That doesn't happen in other institutions. That doesn't happen increasingly in offices and other places of work. Yet we do that because of the convenience it is for the school structure. We moved on and we developed across the different days, and then I interviewed the children again, and this was on day 4. Okay, so who have I got today?
Noah, Nicole, Odette.
Noah, Nicole and Odette. What has been happening in year 4 recently then, Odette?
Well, we've been able to choose our learning.
You've been able to choose your own learning activities. And how's that been different?
So Mr. Johnson doesn't teach us, so we just pick what we want to do.
She doesn't teach you at all? What, she just sits there with her feet up all day?
No. She has focus groups and she helps us with maths and French.
And how's it been going now?
Good. I've had a few, let's say, not disadvantages. Times I've been in the dip, which is basically if you jump over the dip, then you're not challenging yourself. But if you go in the dip, then you are challenging yourself. And if you get out the dip, then you've done your work properly.
So this is like the learning pit?
Yeah.
So you've been in the learning pit a few times?
Yeah.
And what's that felt like when you've been in there?
Hard.
Hard?
Annoying.
What does it feel like when you managed to work your way out?
Good.
Okay, so you've been able to learn from that experience?
Yeah.
Do you think this has helped you be more independent?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll stop it there again. What was interesting about Noah is he was a child that typically was working at a greater depth and would always get things right in class. And what he found through a new way of working was that he got stuck and he found things a real challenge. And that's important that we present children with those challenges. And it's one of the biggest things that we've taken away from the research work that we did is about embedding that kind of culture and language at a really early age. So children know that you should get stuck. In fact, yesterday I did our open morning here at the school, and I made it really clear to each and every parent that was sending their child here that we're going to make learning tough for your children. We're going to get them stuck. We're going to give them things that they cannot do. I was walking through a classroom on Tuesday evening, and we were doing virtual parents' evenings via Zoom. And I heard one of the teachers saying, do you know what? We really need to find something your son can't do. We need to work together, as you as parent and me as teacher, and we really need to make sure they get stuck. And that's the sort of thing we were looking at, and it's really helped us shape and improve our pedagogy. There's a long video here where I talk to them at the end of the week as well, and I'll leave that for now. But what we saw by our engagement with West Thornton was the importance of learning being at the heart of what we do. We were also really inspired by the spaces in which they were working. And they're not the only school that are working in that kind of way. And it's not just in primary. Here's a great example from Copenhagen of a school that takes a similar approach, but in secondary. And of course, the funny thing about this is that, you know, perhaps in the past, you might have referred to something like this, like as the school of the future. And the truth now is it's not the school of the future, it's the school of now. It's what's happening in other parts of the world. There's this change, greater focus on learning that is bringing around this revolution in school in terms of interaction, in terms of design, in terms of the use of technology, in terms of the shaping of pedagogy. And there's a real excitement around that and a real passion. And what I would say is that it's different for us because it's not the institutions that we went to, but for our young people, it's the normal. For anyone that goes through that kind of model, the focus on learning is so powerful, and obviously it's just the normal. I was reflecting this morning about the experiences that we've been able to offer our young people through lockdown, and since March we've done 3 live broadcasts a day here at the Prince of Wales School. We've been sharing content through YouTube and Facebook, and that's become the normal for how parents interact with what we do. And it's not seen as anything special now, it's seen as the expectation. And if we miss one, our parents are now going, where is it? Whereas previously we didn't even do it. So things that were previously new or different or futuristic quickly become the normal. And I think that's what we'll see in terms of how we move forward. We've also sought to develop our spaces here at the Prince of Wales School, and I'll go through this quickly because it's not a key focus of what I wanted to share today, but we've developed some really clear founding principles of how we can make and inspire better learning for all. And that's by focusing on the climate, by focusing on creativity and the collaboration in which we organise our spaces. So when we think about climate, we've introduced lighter spaces. We've made a conscious decision to introduce light and bright into the spaces. We've removed curtains, we've cleaned windows, and we've made sure that we've invoked a protocol which glass means glass, making sure we don't cover things up with posters or bits of fabric, and keeping things as clean and clear as possible. And obviously that's more important now in light of COVID. We've introduced Reggio Emilia colour approach into our spaces, and they've had a calming influence on the children and adults who use the space. We've made sure that we've brought in lots of natural resources, and we've made use of soft furnishings to create a range of different seating spaces. We've promoted creativity by expanding the vinyl spaces that we have, and by ensuring that the services in the classrooms are suitable for both adults and children. So historically, we always had a sink that was only really used by adults. Now we have a sink in each space that's for children and for adults at their height as well. And we've worked with our community to develop these spaces. Collaboration is a hugely important part of our design in terms of learning, and we supported that by the introduction of tiered seating into the classrooms. These pictured here are actually our first generation of tiered seating. If you go to my Twitter profile, you'll see that we've developed on these now as well. And we've also introduced a large array of writable surfaces, because we believe it's important that children have a public space, a gallery, to show that their work is in progress. As an example of one of the spaces we did, this was our reception classroom, a before and after little video.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean? Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world, and a bold world for me. Ready, 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There goes. Here comes the sun, It's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been there. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been there. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say, it's alright.
And that video itself is probably a couple of years old now, and it's changed substantively since then as well. And it's a continuous process. We're constantly seeking to develop and grow and make things better. And as a school, we very much feel that we're just getting started. We're at the start of this learning revolution journey where we're putting the children at the heart of what we do, and we're not afraid to make changes. And in this world where so many things are changing, where there's a new normal, where there's an increasing financial challenge and an increasing social challenge, we feel that if we keep learning at the heart of what we do, if we keep looking at everything through a child's eyes, then we can continue to make an extreme difference. And we as a school feel that we're open like never before.
Stop. Wait. Who says we have to go back to normal? Back to anything? What if the new normal ain't the normal we knew? And we can't just do what we formerly do? What if the biggest change is you and me? What if we choose to be open and say, I will never call my job unimportant again. I'll never say the teacher's holidays are too long. Or the school is dry and I can't wait to move on. My ears are not my earphones.
What if I listen?
What if I'm missing how bright your eyes glisten? What if I just smile a bit, travel less and love every mile of it? What if I believe in the change, my cooking, my music and moves? Hey, what if I don't dance, but just for you? I might give in to the rhythm soon. What if I refuse to be a stranger in my own living room? And I'll learn my lesson from a bad memory. And I'll keep social distance from bad energy. And I'll prove that funny be sexy any day. But I'm still cute anyway. What if my dreams never take the back seat again? What if I'm there whenever you need a friend? What if I celebrate my skin, my body, my hair every day, even Mondays? And I stand by every word I say. I'll make my vote count, make my voice heard today. You know what? I will never say yes to it. So honest today. I'll lead like a woman. I'll have a family of dozens. I'll give my little nephews and nieces some cousins. I'll stay right beside you. I'll say yes, yes, yes. I do. See, I'll never forget how much stronger we are together. I'll carry that in my heart forever. We'll weather the storm. So I'll be open like never before.
At the Prince of Wales School, we've used this as a focus and a stimulus this year. We see this year as an opportunity to start over, to be more humble, to be more mindful, to be happier, braver and better than we've ever been. At the Prince of Wales School, we see that the glass isn't half empty, it's half full, and we can all make a difference when we are stronger than ever before. And this is a key theme and a key piece of branding that we've been using in all of our communications with our parents and in our dialogue as a team and in team meetings. That notion of being stronger than ever before, the experience that we've been through COVID, through lockdown, and the experience we continue to be going through is an opportunity for us to think in new ways, to be stronger, to come together and to make that difference. It's amazing what we can do when we work together.
We're never alone. And that is our strength. Because when we're doubted, we'll play as one. When we're held back, we'll go farther and harder. If we're not taken seriously, we'll prove that wrong. And if we don't fit the sport, we'll change the sport. We know things won't always go our way.
And the world's sporting events are postponed or cancelled.
But whatever it is, we'll find a way. And when things aren't fair, we'll come together for change.
We have a responsibility
to make this world a better place. And no matter how bad it gets, we will always come back stronger. Because nothing can stop what we can do together.
Do you know what? We might well be seeing the death of education, a change in the fabric that we know and support and work in, but learning will always come back stronger. It's an exciting opportunity. It's the birth of a learning revolution, and nothing can stop what we can do together. The best is yet to come. Great innovation only happens when people aren't afraid to do things differently. And do you know what? That can be scary. We're at the start of a new phase. We're at the top of something that can appear to be quite daunting. The growth and use of technology, as I've said, the change in spaces, the way in which people interact. But you know what? Once people take that jump, it can be the most exhilarating and engaging and fun thing that can ever happen. It's a bit like this girl on her first ever ski jump. I'll finish with this video.
I'll be fine. I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Keep it straight, you'll be fine.
Okay.
You can do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
fun.
A
bigger 20.
Go ahead.
I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay.
Just got to embrace that change and make that jump.
How long as you wait, you'll be more scared.
Go. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
60 seems like nothing now. A learning revolution seems like nothing now. I started with a quote from Walt Disney. I'll finish with a quote from Walt Disney. We keep moving forward, opening new doors, opening new pathway. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. I've been Gary Spracklen, and thank you very much.
Oh, that's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Gary. A privilege to hear about your approach, and it actually made me feel quite emotional at times because I know the impact that creating these learning experiences, sets children up and lives with them for the rest of their lives. So really, really powerful stuff. There is lots of love going on in the chat bar and some questions. So we have. Have we got time for just a couple of questions? Do we think? Or
yeah,
is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I don't know where to start. There's just so many. So many. Actually, I'm going to take one from Susie. In that, are you sharing these ideas and approaches with other primaries in the area?
Yeah, so I've spoken to a number of head teachers at different conferences. I've spoken to our colleagues in Dorset Area Schools Partnership, and I've run a number of workshops through the Association for Learning Environments. So that's the role that I have with as Director of Innovation. We've had some recent events. I've also had the team of architects from Dorset Council come along to those sessions, and it's been really great to speak with them about some of these things as well. And a number of the colleagues have been involved in school design for a number of years and talked about how buildings are designed in certain ways. And what I found quite interesting coming to the Prince of Wales School is actually connecting with the architect who designed the school over 25 years ago and understanding what the brief was at the time. And actually, in some cases, we've taken the building back to its original design because things have been changed and we've actually moved. So a good example is and in the late 90s, there was a need to, or early noughties, if we call it that, there was a need to install an ICT suite, and the library was removed from the school to install an ICT suite. And as a result, the library went into a corridor, and that had an immediate effect on the environment around that corridor. And what was needed is to rip out the ICT suite, put a Chromebook trolley in, or iPad trolley, doesn't matter what device, we're device agnostic here at the Prince of Wales School, and liberate that space. And we now have the most, I'm sat in it at the moment, I'm not, obviously it's my virtual background, but the virtual background that you see before me now is our new library that was installed in where the ICT suite was, and that was the original purpose for that room. So sometimes it's not just about going forward, it's about looking back and understanding how things were designed. But in terms of connecting with others, yeah, always keen to connect with others.
Brilliant. I'm gonna do Louise's, Peter, and I'll come to you because I know you've got your hand up. So Louise said, we know that in schools that have a positive culture and climate, safeguarding is also high on the agenda. Have you noticed any differences or changes to children disclosing with the change in the environment?
Yeah, definitely. I would say at the heart of all of this is about relationships. It's about building those really solid relationships with the young people and having that opportunity to have dialogue. If you're just, I call it a sales and bows approach to education. If you're doing a sales and bows approach where the children are literally just coming in, sitting in front of you for a defined period of time and then leaving again, and you may not see them again for another fortnight, or you may only see them twice in a fortnight because that's the way it's timetabled, the resulting impact of that is naturally going to be a derogation on their relationship with you, because they're not spending that time with you. You're not getting to know them as individuals, and therefore if they have anything that they want to disclose or share with you, then why would they do it with you? Because you only see them once a fortnight, or only see them those times a week. So what we see in schools that adopt a much more cross-curricular mixed approach is that you get those really solid relationships, and that can have a huge impact definitely in terms of safeguarding, without a doubt. In fact, the example in Croydon there, that's a really challenged area that's working in an outstanding way, and that they have also they're the school that's right next to the immigration department for the whole country. So the immigration centre's based there, so they have a huge turnover in pupils, as well as having a very mixed and a very challenged socioeconomic community as well. So they've seen the difference that those positive relationships can have, definitely.
Brilliant. And then if we just take Pete, did you want to come in off?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Hi,
we can
Pete.
hear you.
Brilliant. Hi, Gary. Firstly, thank you. That was really powerful, moving and emotional stuff. Actually, I think there's a lot of people that have got something in their eye right now. But really made me think about the learning journey that people's go on, and the future world of work that they're going to end up in when they get to the end of this is going to be one with things like AI, machine learning, robots, all of that kind of stuff. And that approach that you're I hope you don't mind me saying pioneering, from what I know, seems to fit with that very well. But what do you think happens next in that pupil's journey? Do you see this as something that is going to carry on to the likes of other schools or academic environments that may be more exam outcome focused?
Yeah,
how do these two things fit together?
I think we're naturally going to see a change in what schools offer, and we see that already at the very, very highest end. If we look at the highest performing students that are seeking to go on to Oxbridge universities or Russell Group universities, they're now expected in their personal statements to show that they haven't just got 3 A's at A level and a batch load of great GCSEs. They're expected to be able to demonstrate their rounded personality. And we see things like the growth of the personal project at AS level and A level, and the importance that is being placed now on students being able to prove that they can work in a more independent way, because employees ultimately are saying that they don't just want someone that's got qualifications. They want someone that's got life experience and a broad range of skills, and that can only start to trickle down. Now, the speed and change is frustrating, of course, because that's the nature of change. It can be frustrating at times, but what's interesting is that increasingly people are voting with their feet, either with home education options, a controversial area, but for some, but the numbers speak for themselves. The growth in that has been huge over recent years, and not only that, other institutions now offering online only options, and we see that with degrees, how much that's changed. And let's be blunt about it, people that opted to go on an actual degree course are getting an online only degree at the moment as well. So, some of these things have been massively accelerated. I want to just share a graphic I've got on my screen. I've just been able to find it. It's from Professor Stephen Heppel, who was based at Bournemouth University. He's now based out of Madrid. Very inspiring person for me in my life. And I love this graphic. This is about the future. Intelligent computers are really good at all those things on the left. Okay, but humans are really good at all the things on the right. But what is it that our education system is focused on at the moment? Our education system is heavily weighted to all the things on the left, about acquiring of knowledge, of repetition, of being consistent. Whereas, where is the focus on all the things on the right? And that's
I was reading something where they were saying that the structure of our education system at the moment was designed in the Victorian times, and it was designed to feed factory environments. And it hasn't really evolved or moved on massively since then. It's got bells, it's got gradings of things, and you sit down, you stand up, you get told what to do. And I thought it was really inspiring to see the change in the pupils once they were given choice. And I think that's really something that people need to learn.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And it will happen. It will happen in bits and pieces, and it will grow. This is the work that we did for the Department for Education. This was back in, this is 4 or 5 years ago, or more than that, actually, 5 years ago now. And we were looking at what the future would look like in terms of education. And you can still find this if you go to etag.report. There's a whole, range of work there. I was one of 2 teachers in the UK involved in that project. And this is what we were saying. This is what 2025 will look like. And we actually said, oh, well, actually, it's probably more like 2020. And it's funny how much of that has become a reality now. And in particular, obviously, this one in the centre here, online learning is an entitlement. Online learning is now law. Remote learning is now law, at least, and 90% of schools are providing that remote learning through technology. So it's very interesting how those things are happening. We said at the time they would happen before 2025, and they truly have. And it's different push and pull factors that have made that happen. Maybe not ones that we would expect, but that's the reality.
Wow.
Things
Well, what an absolutely inspirational way to end our Festival of the Future, Gary, and thank you so much. I think everybody has loved it, totally inspired, amazing work that you were doing down there at Prince of Wales. So thank you for taking time out. I know you must have a million things to be doing, so I really appreciate
avoiding welcoming parents on the gate for parents. That's what I'm going to put my coat on now and go and give out the chairs for parents' evening. So
have
everyone
a good
gets a
evening.
chair this year. Right.
Take care, and thank you ever